The only correct response is for everybody to emphatically reject anti-Semitism wherever they see it, just as the correct response to an attempt on the president's life is to reject all forms of political violence. It's not a correct response to censor liberal opinions or liberal people on the basis that the attempted assassin had left-wing positions. And the exact same thing can be said of criticizing Israel.
So Piers Morgan just exposed how anti-Semitism accusations are being weaponized to silence policy critics, and it's splitting conservatives right down the middle. Mark Levin's attacking Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith using the same censorship playbook liberals used against him for decades. The hypocrisy is stunning.
In fact, conflating Israel and Judaism is part of the problem. And it's the people who claim to be most concerned about anti-Semitism who keep doing it. Last week, Mark Levin called for so-called Nazis, including Dave Smith and Tucker Carlson, to be deplatformed using the exact same language that was once deployed against conservatives like him. Listen carefully to his words here.
This is the ultimate conservative betrayal. Levin spent decades fighting liberal censorship tactics, warning about deplatforming and character assassination. Now he's literally calling for the same thing against fellow conservatives who question Israel policy. He became exactly what he once opposed.
The Jews got us into the war with Iran, he says, drawing a straight line between a legitimate opinion and anti-Semitic violence. But nobody says that. Many people blame Israel for involving the US in the war in Iran, mostly because of the overwhelming on-the-record evidence and reporting which substantiates that view. But that's very different to blaming the religion and its followers. Mark Levin and others who share his views do this repeatedly, and it's dangerous. Violent attacks against Jewish people have been rising all over the world ever since the Israeli war on Hamas.
The documented evidence is overwhelming. AIPAC spent over $100 million in 2024 elections alone. The Wall Street Journal reported Netanyahu explicitly pushed for Iran strikes. But mention these facts and suddenly you're labeled anti-Semitic. It's designed to end debate, not encourage it.
All the more reason to make crystal clear that Netanyahu is no more a spokesman for global Judaism than Cole Thomas Allen is a spokesman for the Democrats. A similar debate about the importance of words formed part of Tucker Carlson's much-discussed interview with the New York Times.
Exactly right. Nobody holds American Jews responsible for Biden's policies or British Jews accountable for Starmer's decisions. But somehow, Israeli government actions get conflated with global Judaism. This deliberate blurring serves one purpose: shutting down legitimate criticism through emotional manipulation.
Well, right on cue, yesterday's Israel National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, posed with his birthday cake, decorated with a golden noose and the words, "Sometimes dreams come true," a grotesque celebration of his new two-tier death penalty law, which will target only Palestinians. Anybody misusing anti-Semitism to deflect criticism of Israel is leaving Jewish people everywhere to shoulder the blame for the behavior of people like Ben-Gvir. I can't think of anything more likely to put them in harm's way than that.
Ben-Gvir celebrating execution laws with a noose cake is genuinely psychotic behavior. When you tell the world that criticizing this lunatic means hating all Jews, you're literally painting a target on innocent Jewish communities. This conflation creates the very danger it claims to prevent.
Mark Levin has posted on X, "Folks, Carlson, Tucker, is in my opinion mentally ill. That is the explanation. It's not complicated. What he says, incessant lying and conspiracies, obsessive hatred of Israel and Jews, his speech pattern and odd rambling, strange cackling, wild mood swings and all the rest." That's his latest diatribe about Tucker. He's done similar to you as well and others. What do you make of that?
Levin's completely lost it. Calling Tucker mentally ill because he won't cheerlead for endless wars shows Levin can't engage on substance anymore. When your argument is anyone who disagrees is crazy, you've already admitted you have no real argument left to make.
And I think that people like Mark Levin, who, starting that clip that I show with, people are trying to blame the Jews. They're not. I mean, look, there are some people out there who are genuinely anti-Semitic who will definitely blame the Jews for everything and hate Jewish people. Of course they are. They're genuine anti-Semites. But the people he's alluding to in that rant of his are actually people who've criticized the Israeli government, and people like Ben-Gvir, whose wife gives him a birthday cake for his 50th birthday only 2 days ago, which has a golden noose on it. And they celebrate this. This is psychopathic behavior.
The distinction is crystal clear. Real anti-Semites blame Jewish people for everything. Policy critics blame specific government officials for specific actions. Conflating Ben-Gvir's extremism with Judaism itself is exactly the dangerous game that puts actual Jewish people at risk worldwide.
For those who are not as up to speed with the history of what happened here. Netanyahu only got back into power by getting into bed with some extremely dark individuals like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, whose game plan really is to get all the Palestinians out of the West Bank, out of Gaza, and take it all over themselves. They are supremacists in that sense. And the idea that somehow you conflate criticism of those people working in a very, very hardline Israeli government, doing some stuff which most people, most decent-minded people, find increasingly unacceptable, that you suddenly twist that into, well, it's blaming the Jews. This is an anti-Jewish thing, as if somehow it's about the religion of anybody. It's completely shameful and outrageous.
Netanyahu's coalition with Smotrich and Ben-Gvir is documented history. These aren't mainstream politicians. They're open supremacists who want Palestinian expulsion. Levin knows this, but tries to silence discussion by screaming antisemitism. It's intellectually dishonest and morally bankrupt.
It's the same
Either
tactic, isn't it?
I'm a truly disgusting person, or I just have political takes based on reality that are mainstream now.
Yeah, it's the same tactic each time. It's actually a tactic of enforcing censorship. What they're trying to do is bully people like me and you into not being critical of things like Israel's policy in Lebanon or Gaza, or, as you say, criticism of the transgender arguments, particularly surrounding women's sport, which was, to me, history will look back and go, who on earth ever defended that nonsense? To other issues involving the BLM riots, for example, when they happened. You could have a perfectly legitimate position being outraged about what happened to George Floyd, and also think the rioting that followed was outrageous, and there was a double standard about the way those rioters got treated compared to, say, the January 6th rioters. All these things, if you're intellectually honest, you can be honest about all of these things separately. And what happens is, as you said, you get called anti-Semitic, transphobic, racist, and it's a deliberate tactic to silence us. And it's a really insidious one.
This is the playbook across every issue now. Question transgender ideology? You're transphobic. Criticize BLM riots? You're racist. Challenge Israel policy? You're anti-Semitic. It's coordinated censorship disguised as moral outrage, designed to shut down inconvenient debates before they start.
And the other thing I would say is, you and Tucker are very proudly and firmly conservative right figures in America, and two of the most prominent in the country. I've never been that or positioned myself in that way. I consider myself to be a centrist, really. I used to run a reasonably left-wing newspaper in the UK, the Daily Mirror. I'm certainly not conservative right by any normal metric. There have been a lot of crossover points, I think. The woke explosion, for example, brought a lot of us together on all that stuff. So lots of things that I find myself agreeing with you about, and there are some things you and I wouldn't agree about. But what this leads me just into the other point I was going to make, which is the incendiary nature of political rhetoric now.
The realignment is fascinating. Traditional left-right divisions are collapsing into establishment enforcers versus independent thinkers. When a former Daily Mirror editor agrees with American conservatives on censorship, you know the battle lines have completely shifted. It's about intellectual honesty now.
And then, other times in the last few weeks, he's gone pretty berserk on social media and talked about annihilating 90 million people and so on in Iran. What do you feel about this general debate about rhetoric, political rhetoric, particularly from those political leaders?
The hypocrisy is staggering. Trump talks about annihilating 90 million Iranians, and Levin stays silent, but criticize war policy, and you're suddenly dangerous. The same people demanding censorship of war critics cheer the most inflammatory pro-war rhetoric imaginable.
Donald Trump and Iran, it looks to me like he is desperate to get out of this with any kind of victory that he can. But at the moment, Iran is just not playing ball and has managed to work out that the control of the Strait of Hormuz is all they really need to do to string this out as long as they like and cause enormous damage. What should Trump be doing, do you think? I mean, if I was advising him, I'd be like, something, that if this goes on for another few months, you can kiss goodbye to the House and the Senate in November. This is going to be enormously politically damaging for you, for the Republicans, for everything. And there's no easy way to sort this. You should just claim victory and get out. Say we've smashed up their military, we've put back their nuclear aspirations, however long you want to put a number on it, just get out of here. I don't see any upside in this being strung out through the summer. Do you?
Iran's chokehold on Hormuz was completely predictable. The war critics warned about this exact scenario from day one, but Levin and others attacked them as anti-Semites instead of addressing their strategic concerns. Now we're seeing exactly why those warnings were so important.
This war in Iran, from where I'm looking, and I raised these concerns after day one, and nothing has shaken my belief. It looks to me like Donald Trump has got into something which has turned out to be a lot more difficult than he thought it would be, perhaps because the Israelis had assured him it would be easier than this. And that now he's in a position where if he carries on, it's politically disastrous, economically disastrous. And if he gets out, he'll have the accusation that it's all been a waste of time and a failure. You know Trump extremely well. You've done him longer than I have. What would you be advising him right now?
This vindication is crucial. The early skeptics called every major development, the Hormuz blockade, the economic damage, the military quagmire. Meanwhile, Levin was busy attacking their character instead of their arguments. The critics were right. The cheerleaders were catastrophically wrong.
I think the problem for the midterms is going to be if this war drags on with all the economic havoc it's causing, then what's going to happen is that regular Americans are going to look at two promises Donald Trump made: not to drag America into pointless, expensive Middle Eastern wars, and to focus on America first and getting the cost of living down. And if neither of those things have been achieved, in fact, the complete opposite has happened, then I suspect the Republicans are in for an absolute shellacking in November. Now, there's still time to rectify this, but every week that goes by with this war is another week which is longer than we were told this was all going to last. And I'm looking at the prices of gas prices, the inevitable surge in food prices that's going to come because of the fertilizer issue and so on. It's all bad news for Trump. His approval rating is at a record low. He should just get out of this thing.
Trump's approval ratings collapsed because he broke his core promises. No more Middle East wars became the biggest Middle East war in decades. America first became Israel first. The war hawks like Levin helped create this disaster by silencing the voices warning against it. Trump's approval ratings collapsed because he broke his core promises. No more Middle East wars became the biggest Middle East war in decades. America first became Israel first. The war hawks like Levin helped create this disaster by silencing the voices warning against it.